Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now this is an old eMachines 4260 computer. When the company started trading out of California in 1998, they announced a range of budget PCs starting at $399, with other variants available at $499 and $599 respectively. A pretty uncommon pricing strategy given that most systems back then would have been far more expensive, even ones considered entry level or budget. In fact, the first PC my family bought way back in the early 2000s featured a Pentium 4 and cost £850, around $1,500 back then. Selling PCs at such a low price can be both beneficial and detrimental though, because while some people probably thought they were getting a bargain, others presumed corners must have been cut, and it seems that in the early days of the company, that might have been true. Looking around some old forums, and it's clear customers had issues, and the more tech-savvy consumers picked up on the low-quality, unnamed components used to build these eMachines systems. However, this soon changed. This article in the August 2004 issue of PC Magazine states that since last spring, the company has paid special attention to quality control and goes on to say that eMachines low-cost PCs are less likely to need repairs than systems from anyone else but Apple. It's a good job then that this one I have here is an early 2005 model with almost all of its original components still installed. There are a few bits missing, but after reading about the story of eMachines and learning how they made computing more affordable, I decided I wanted to try and restore this one to its original condition. It's a very tidy example except from the small dent that probably occurred during shipping, and it features a Celeron D345 socket 478 processor along with a DVD-RW drive. The RAM, hard drive and internal 56K modem are missing, but for the age it's very clean and has clearly been dusted off before it arrived here. But does it still work? Well, first we'll have to find those missing parts. The first thing I bought was a 160GB IDE hard drive. This would have been the original size that came with this system, and it will be plenty for the Windows XP operating system, as well as for a few programs too. Luckily the hard drive cage is still here, so installation is simple. Just remove the cage, fix the hard drive to it, and connect the IDE cable and Molex connector for power. For the memory, our machine would originally have come with 512MB of RAM, but knowing it supports 1GB, I just had to go with that option, as this would have been a likely upgrade for a lot of owners who wanted to squeeze a little more performance out of it in later years. This RAM is clocked at 333MHz. Now for the last piece of the restoration puzzle, a 56K internal modem. If you're not familiar with these, either because you're a younger viewer or you had the pleasure of avoiding the suffering that was dial-up internet, then let me explain. Just like with a wired broadband connection today, a cable would connect from your PC to an external modem which would use a telephone line to access the internet. Not only would this stop you being able to use the home phone at the same time, but compared to today's standards it was very slow. The best dial-up connection would still be about 8 or 9 times slower than the slowest broadband connection. Want to download a 10MB file? That'll take about 20 minutes, and don't even think about trying to watch Netflix. We're installing it in the system anyway for originality purposes, but I'll be using good old broadband for the later part of the video. I've also installed Windows XP on our system, and I've even found a free trial disk of AOL 9, the program my household used to get online many years ago. If you want to see more regarding XP itself, then check out my XP retrospective video. As for this system, well, our Celeron D, 1GB of RAM and Intel Extreme graphics make general browsing a breeze, though remember XP support ended in 2014, and it's probably not the best idea to continue using it, but it is still my favourite OS, that's for sure. Now let's put these onboard Intel Extreme graphics to the test. Okay, I never remember Far Cry looking quite like this, but it feels quite smooth despite the water. Smooth as in at least 30 FPS, maybe, on a good day. Okay, no. But the game does run, it's slightly playable. I don't know where the water ends and the land starts. Okay, so I decided to give FIFA a go. a cool old football game. I have no idea what the controls are, but the game does run smooth at 640 by 480. I'll admit, must be getting at least 60 frames per second. I seem to have the game on the hardest difficulty, but it runs, and it definitely is enjoyable if I could figure out what the controls were. And I've quickly jumped into the tutorial of Max Payne here. I just wanted to jump into the tutorial quickly so that I could get a quick idea of how it's running, and it's actually very smooth at 640 by 480, which really isn't too bad, especially for an old game like this where graphics really aren't everything anyway. And to be honest, they never really are. The game does run fairly well, and it's more than enjoyable on these old school Intel Extreme graphics. With a system like this, you are limited to older games, but you can definitely have an okay experience, and it's pretty fun restoring something back to its original state, even if that thing isn't particularly capable anymore. eMachines played a big part in making computers affordable to the masses, and I'll be keeping this one mainly as a storage solution that I'll play a few classic games on every so often just because. For those of you wondering, this does have an additional PCI slot, so you could add a graphics card if you wanted, but this video was more about the restoration and turning it into a beefier gaming system that best represents the mid-2000s is definitely something I will consider doing as well. But it was nice to get this thing working properly first, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video too. If you did, leave a like on it. If you didn't, leave a dislike, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next video.